Welcome, listeners, to another fascinating episode of The Way of Hermes. I'm Jake, and joining me today is my co-host Emily. We're diving into a topic that's both ancient and surprisingly relevant to our modern world, Hermeticism.
That's right, Jake. Hermeticism is a philosophical and spiritual tradition that has intrigued scholars and seekers for centuries. But before we delve deeper, let's start with the basics. Jake, can you give our listeners a simple explanation of what Hermeticism is?
At its core, Hermeticism is based on the teachings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a legendary figure who's considered the founder of this ancient wisdom tradition. The term Trismegistus actually means thrice greatest, which hints at the reverence accorded to this enigmatic figure.
And why was Hermes called thrice greatest? It seems like quite a lofty title.
Well, Emily, there are actually a couple of interpretations. Some experts believe it's because Hermes mastered the three parts of universal wisdom: alchemy, astrology, and theurgy. Essentially, that's the workings of the earth and sun, the cosmos and stars, and the divine realm.
Wow, that's quite a range of knowledge, but I've heard there's another explanation for the thrice greatest title. Can you tell us about that?
The other interpretation suggests that Hermes was the greatest in three different roles: as a philosopher, a priest, and a king. This multifaceted excellence really underscores the comprehensive nature of Hermetic wisdom.
Now, listeners might be wondering about the historical significance of Hermes Trismegistus. Jake, could you shed some light on why he's considered such an important figure?
Hermes Trismegistus is revered as the founder of not just one, but multiple disciplines. We're talking about science, religion, mathematics, geometry, alchemy, philosophy, medicine, and even magic. It's an incredibly diverse range of subjects that form the foundation of much of human knowledge.
That's an impressive list. It almost seems too good to be true. Was Hermes Trismegistus a real person, or more of a mythological figure?
That's a great question, Emily. The truth is, it's a bit of both. Hermes Trismegistus is believed to be a combination of two divine figures: the Egyptian god Thoth, known for wisdom and communication, and the Greek god Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Over time, these mythological aspects blended with possibly real historical figures.
So, in a way, Hermes Trismegistus represents a synthesis of different cultural traditions. That's really interesting, Jake. Now, I understand that Hermes is credited with writing an enormous number of works. Can you tell us more about that?
It's said that Hermes wrote anywhere between 20,000 and 36,525 works. That's an astounding number. Legend has it that 42 of these works were kept in the Great Library of Alexandria. Unfortunately, as many of our listeners might know, that library was destroyed multiple times throughout history.
What a tragic loss of knowledge that must have been. But surely not all was lost, right? Did any of Hermes' writings survive?
Fortunately, yes. A handful of Hermetic texts have survived to this day, and most of them have been collected in what's known as the Corpus Hermeticum. This collection gives us a glimpse into the vast knowledge attributed to Hermes Trismegistus.
That's incredible that we still have access to some of this ancient wisdom. Now, Jake, I'm curious about the philosophical aspects of Hermeticism. Can you tell us more about that?
Hermetic philosophy, or Hermeticism, is one of the oldest religious and philosophical traditions we know of. It's essentially a synthesis of the religion and philosophy that flourished in Ptolemaic Egypt. What's really interesting is that it wasn't confined to a single religious group, but rather formed the foundation for many traditions, some of which are still alive today.
That's fascinating, Jake. It sounds like Hermeticism had a far-reaching influence. Can you elaborate on some of the traditions it impacted?
Hermeticism has connections to various philosophical schools like Platonism, Neoplatonism, Stoicism, and Pythagoreanism. It also influenced major religions such as Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Even early Christian Gnostics, who were considered heretics by the early church, were impacted by Hermetic ideas.
Wow, that's quite a legacy. It seems like studying Hermeticism would give you insight into so many different philosophical and religious traditions. But Jake, I've heard that a lot of Hermetic wisdom was lost or destroyed over time. What can you tell us about that?
You're right, Emily. Unfortunately, much of the Hermetic and alchemical literature was destroyed throughout ancient history. The rise of Christianity, particularly from the time of Emperor Constantine onwards, led to the systematic removal of almost every trace of Hermeticism. This period, from about 312 to the 6th century AD, saw the destruction of many Hermetic texts and possibly even Hermetic groups.
That sounds like a dark time for Hermetic knowledge. How did any of it manage to survive?
Well, Emily, to escape destruction by the Church, the Hermetic tradition was forced to go underground. This actually gave rise to the secret occult tradition that still permeates Western esoteric traditions today. Some texts also managed to survive within the Islamic world around 400 to 600 AD.
It's amazing how resilient this tradition has been, surviving against such odds. Jake, you mentioned that Hermeticism influenced Western esoteric traditions. Can you give our listeners some examples of where we might see that influence today?
The influence of Hermeticism can be seen in various secret societies and esoteric traditions. For instance, you can find Hermetic elements in Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Even more modern movements like Aleister Crowley's Thelema, contemporary paganism, and certain aspects of the New Age movement draw inspiration from Hermetic philosophy.
It seems Hermeticism has had a lasting impact on Western esotericism, but I'm curious, did this underground survival of Hermetic wisdom ever resurface in mainstream thought?
Indeed it did, Emily. Hermetic wisdom made a significant comeback during the Renaissance. After being preserved in the Islamic world for centuries, it returned to Europe in the Middle Ages and became a crucial impulse for Renaissance thought and culture.
Wow, talk about a philosophical comeback. It's incredible how these ideas managed to survive and even thrive after such a long period of suppression.
And it's not just Renaissance thinkers who found value in these ideas. Even today, we can see the influence of Hermetic thought in unexpected places. For example, the philosophy behind Waldorf schools, developed by Rudolf Steiner, incorporates elements of Hermetic wisdom.
That's surprising. I had no idea Hermeticism had such a wide-ranging influence. It seems like these ideas have a remarkable ability to adapt and find relevance in different historical contexts. Jake, do you think there's something about Hermetic philosophy that makes it particularly resilient?
I believe part of Hermeticism's resilience lies in its fundamental principles, which often deal with universal themes like the nature of reality, the relationship between the divine and the material world, and the potential for human spiritual development. These are timeless questions that continue to resonate with people across different eras and cultures.
It's amazing to think about how these ancient ideas have traveled through time, surviving persecution and obscurity to continue influencing thought today. It really speaks to the enduring power of philosophical and spiritual ideas.
Absolutely, Emily. The enduring nature of Hermetic ideas is truly remarkable. Now let's delve a bit deeper into who Hermes Trismegistus might have been. As we've discussed, he's a figure shrouded in mystery, blending historical and mythological elements.
That's right, Jake. We've touched on his divine associations, but what about the more earthly theories about his identity?
Well, Emily, some scholars believe that Hermes Trismegistus may have been an actual historical figure. Theories suggest he could have been a king, a philosopher, a priest, or even a combination of these roles. Some even speculate that he might have been a sage, a scientist, or a magician.
It's fascinating how many different identities have been attributed to him. It almost seems like Hermes Trismegistus has become a symbol for wisdom and knowledge itself, doesn't it?
In fact, over the past 2,000 years, Hermes Trismegistus has indeed become an amalgamation of various people and mythological figures from ancient history. But regardless of his exact identity, his primary role remains consistent across different interpretations.
And what role is that, Jake?
The main function attributed to Hermes in all his various incarnations is that of a divine scribe. He's seen as the one who wrote down the wisdom of God to help humankind in its development and to guide us back to the divine.
That's a powerful role indeed. Now, I've heard that Hermes has a particular symbol associated with him. Can you tell our listeners about that?
The main symbol associated with Hermes is the caduceus, or serpent staff. It's a staff with two snakes winding around it, often topped with wings. This symbol has become so iconic that it's still used today, particularly in association with medicine and healing.
Speaking of modern associations, I understand that the term hermetic has taken on some additional meanings in our contemporary world. Can you elaborate on that?
In modern science, the term hermetically sealed is used to describe something that's airtight and impervious to gases. More broadly, hermetic has come to mean something that is sealed or secret. This usage actually reflects the historical nature of Hermetic philosophy, which was often veiled in secrecy and only revealed to those deemed truly ready for its insights.
That's a fascinating linguistic evolution, Jake. It seems the idea of hidden or protected knowledge is deeply embedded in the concept of Hermeticism. Speaking of protection, I've heard that Hermes himself was said to have magical powers. Is there any truth to that?
According to legend, Hermes claimed to have magical powers that he used to protect his writings. He's said to have declared that he would safeguard his books with these powers, ensuring they would never be lost as long as humankind exists.
That's quite a claim. And given that some of his writings have survived to this day despite numerous attempts to destroy them, one might be tempted to believe in that magical protection. It certainly adds another layer of mystique to the already enigmatic figure of Hermes Trismegistus.
You're absolutely right, Emily. The mystique surrounding Hermes Trismegistus and his teachings is part of what makes Hermeticism so intriguing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Hermetic Dialogues, the official podcast of the Way of Hermes website. If you are interested in free articles on Hermeticism and related topics or want to study this ancient tradition through our online course, be sure to visit our website at wayofhermes.com.